Greetings, everyone, and thank you for coming to the operator meeting today. My name is Hannah.Hickam, and I will be your host. Since I've already given folks time to join the meeting, let's just get started. First up is Scott Cuthbertson with Financial Assurance Update.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. I'm going to share my screen and kick you off there, so you'll have to reshare in a minute. Hopefully everybody can see the operator guidance page of our regulations section on the website. Thank you, Hannah. Just wanted to make you aware that we do have we have a number of recently updated or released guidance documents, so you might look for those. Permitting has been issuing a number of them over the last several weeks, as other groups have as well. And we have a financial assurance guidance that many of you have been asking about. So I wanted to make you aware that that's out there. I also wanted to just show you this, and maybe we can put a link to this in the chat, Hannah. I'll do that when I'm through talking. I'll put a link to this in the chat so people can know how to access it. I don't think I reference it in the guidance, but this is a 40,000 foot level overview of the financial assurance process, just a summary overview. For those of you who are, just wanting a general map to show your executives, or just for you to have as an easy reference guide. I'm not going to take the time to go through it. It's pretty self-explanatory. And it basically just says, you submit a Form 3. Once that Form 3 is approved, you can submit a Form 3A, which will be out very soon, I think, within a matter of a week or two, I would think. The 3A is the document that is the form that you will use to submit your financial assurance instrument information, and then mail those instruments in to COGCC here at 1120 Lincoln. Once we receive those instruments and audit that they agree with the information you've submitted in the 3A, so we have an accurate record in our database, that 3A will be approved, and you will have satisfied your financial assurance plan requirements as of that point. Once the Form 3 and an associated Form 3A are approved, you can then be able to submit a Form 3C, which was just another form that we're using to manage the request for releases. That Form 3C will be developed very quickly. So once you have an approved Form 3 going forward, once you have an approved Form 3 and an associated approved Form 3A, then we'll process the 3C for releases. So that's the general overview of the plan going forward. Obviously, we're still bridging the gap, and continue to contact Debbie Lutz or Meredith Moon as you have urgent needs regarding financial assurance, and they will figure out how to best meet your needs. So that's really all I had to share. I have one other public service announcement. Many of you may be aware that there is a YouTube or a Netflix movie that's supposed to come out on April 7th that talks about how to attack infrastructure for extremists. Just want to make you aware of that in case you're not. You can contact your operational safety teams, and I'm sure they're aware of it. I would not encourage anybody to watch it, just because I wouldn't want to encourage anybody to participate in that kind of activity in any way. But we did want to just make the announcement for your awareness to be aware of the potential for increased activity from extremist elements. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Hannah.
Great, thank you, Scott. Next up, we have Form 5B, Inactive Well Notice. That will be presented by Diana Byrne. I'll just give you a moment to cue that up. All right, Diana, you can take it away. Oh, actually, I think they're muted. Sorry.
Now I should be better. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Alrighty. Good morning, everyone. We've had some recent mechanical integrity tests, and when we're reviewing, there hasn't been a Form 5B. So just a brief reminder about the Form B and what it does. So the Form B 5B itself is just an inactive well notice. Next slide, please. So this is by definition what we declare an inactive well. So a well is shut in or has not produced for a period of 12 consecutive months. An oil and gas well has been temporarily abandoned for a period of 6 consecutive months. A Class 2 UIC well, which has not been utilized for a period of 12 consecutive months, or a suspended operations well or a waiting on completion well that has no activity other than monthly brain and monitor for more than 24 consecutive months. Next slide, please. So the requirement by Rule 434C says that within 6 months of a well becoming inactive, so for any of those above reasons, the well will be plugged and abandoned unless the well is brought into production, a Form 5B is filed, and or it could be that it's placed on a 6A out of service designation list. Next slide, please. So where we're seeing this is in reviewing sundries that are requesting continued temporarily abandoned status on a Form 6 notice of intent to abandon if the well has been idle for more than 12 months. And then also for mechanical integrity tests for wells to remain shut in. So these are wells that are desired to be retained rather than appear on Form 6A out of service. Next slide, please. So, and there's another reminder, if the wells are going to be put on a 6A, if they're due for the mechanical integrity test, so shut in for coming up on 2 years or temporarily abandoned for more than 30 days, those are still liable for their mechanical integrity test prior to being placed on the 6A. They don't have to have a mechanical integrity test after that, but if it was due prior to their placement on a 6A, they're required to have that mechanical integrity test. Next slide, please. There is a guidance document on our website. So under regulation, operator guidance, so it's Rule 434C, plugging in active wells. It basically lists these rules and these requirements again and speaks to the Form 5B. There's not a separate 5B one, but it does cite the requirement for a 5B. Next slide, please. That's it. So just a reminder, please, that when we're reviewing mechanical integrity tests, when we're reviewing temporarily abandoned sundries, when we're looking at 6s, if that well is in need, it meets those requirements of being an inactive well, basically in month 19, because the rule says that it becomes inactive at 12 months or 6 months, but then you have 6 months post whatever turns it inactive to have dealt with it. So month 19 in most instances, we'd expect it to be on a 5B. So we're holding questions, I assume, till the end, right? Are you holding questions, Hannah?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Folks can
Okay.
type their questions into the chat and we'll get them at the end.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diana. Next up, we have Penny Garrison, and let me just cue that one up. Nope, not that one. There it is. Great. And Rule 408. Penny, can we just test your mic real quick?
Hi, Hannah. Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead and take it away. Thank you.
Okay. This is also a quick reminder. The Rule 408R, the requirement to log wells. Next slide, please. I'm going to go over the quick overview of the rule, the alternative logging program, the alternative logging program with the exception, and the COAs that we've been asking for. Next slide, please. Rule 408R requires that operators log each well on the pad with an open hole log. The purpose of this is not only to get the log for our library, but also to show well control. There it is. Next slide, please. Most operators nowadays are submitting the alternate logging program, especially for our multi-well pad. You have 30 wells on a pad and you're requesting to log only one of them, or one of the first ones. This is something that we've been allowing after looking at reviewing our guidance document and updating it last summer. We have been asking operators to log more than one well on a large pad. This is the examples of the BMPs we've been putting on, our operators have been putting on their APDs. The first one is just one of the first wells on the pad will be logged with the open hole resistivity with gamma ray. And the second one is if you actually have an existing well on the pad that has been logged, then you put that name in there, and that was acceptable. After looking at our guidance document, we realized that we were not enforcing it correctly. Next slide, please. There is a portion in here, it's paragraph 5, restrictions on the use of alternate logging program. And one of those is that the operator log one of the I know I was gonna mess that up. One of the deepest wells on the pad, and if there is more than 1,500 feet from the TPZ of wells, then to log more than one well. And we have been asking for this. So the example shown here shows that there is a good half mile between the top of the top well in section 12 and the bottom on that row. In that which case we would add a COA requesting the operator log 2 wells during their first occupancy of this pad. We'd also would prefer that there's one in each direction if possible. So if the operator would log one off to the west and another one off to the west and to the east, that would be helpful. The reason for this particular graph is because it shows that there is no well control in this area. This is a new area on the edge of a field, and we would request more logs on this. Next slide, please. So this is the exception. Believe it or not, the exception also requires that you log one of the deepest wells. Let me start over. The exception is accepted when you request it if there is a log within 750 feet of the surface location. If there's not a log within 750 feet of the surface location, then we request 2 within 1,500 feet of the surface location. We've had some that were submitted at 3,000 feet away, which was not accepted. Here is the BMP that that the operator places on there when they request the exception. Next slide, please. Believe it or not, the exception location has the same restriction as the alternative logging program. We want the deepest well, or if there's going to be more than 1,500 feet between the TPZs, we'd request an additional well. This example was given because it shows that this pad has many wells, and no, I forgot to count them. And it's going in 2 different directions, which means that we're going to request additional logs on this well. And we would also ask that not only do you log one going to the south, but also one going to the west. And it does show, as you can see from the purple lines, that this is the second occupancy for this. So I had the wrong COA in there. Sorry, guys. And you can see from the distance from the first TPZ to the bottom TPZ is 2257. That means that we would request at least 2 logs in that area because they're going to be more than 1,500 feet. Unless you're really smart and you put one kind of in the middle, and that way you can split the difference. So this is why we've been asking for additional logs, open haul logs on wells. And next slide, please, Hannah. I want to also point out that it has not been updated this year, but it was updated summer of last year. So this is where you can find the guidance, regulations, forms, Form 2s. And if you scroll down towards the bottom, there it is, Rule 408R, requirement to log a well. And as you can see right above it is the suggestion for the exception letter. I also want to point out that if the guidance is not clear or you have a specific question, you're more than welcome to reach out to your permit completion specialist or myself. Actually, the guidance recommends you do that before you submit, so we can look at the pad and see whether there's additional logs required or not. Next slide, please, Hannah. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Penny. And now we will take questions. Just give me a moment to queue that up. All right, the first question is, for financial assurance plans approved, will there be an extension to the 90 days to obtain financial assurance due to the Form 3A not being available at this time, assuming the 3A needs to go to the insurance company for signature as the original Form 3 did?
The 3A doesn't have to go to anyone for approval other than us. The 3A is simply the instrument identifications that you are going to be relying upon to meet your approved Form 3 financial assurance. And so as soon as you get an approved Form 3, you can begin to secure the financial instruments that you need to meet those approved amounts. And then as soon as the 3A is available, you will submit the identifying information of those instruments so that we know what to look for in the mail when you send them in. So as soon as you secure your financial instruments, you can mail them in. And then as soon as you complete your Form 3A, we will audit that what you've sent us is what you've input into the database in the 3A. And if those match, we'll approve the Form 3A and you'll be done. If those don't match, someone will contact you to understand what the discrepancy is between what you put in the 3A and what you submitted to us through delivery or mail. Did that answer the question?
Great, thanks, Scott. If there is need for clarification, just put that in the chat and we will clarify at the end. The next question is, can you please provide an estimate for approval of the Form 1B that was due and submitted last August? This form is due again this month, and without last year's form approval, an operator's general liability insurance information will not populate. Thank you. I'm not sure who that would go to.
And I'm sorry, I wasn't listening if that was a financial assurance question.
No worries, I can read it again. Can you please provide an estimate for approval of the Form 1B that was due and submitted last August? This form is due again this month, and without last year's form approval, an operator's general liability insurance information will not populate.
I'm pretty sure the Form 1Bs are being approved as we speak, or being reviewed and approved. I would think sometime this week.
Great, thanks, Scott. The next question is, when will the Form 6B be available? That's
6B.
about, yeah, 6B. I don't know off the top of my head which one that is, but I can look it up if you like. No? Yes. Maybe. Okay, I'm gonna do it.
So the 6B is the annual report of the 6A progress. And I don't know that we have an anticipated date for that report yet.
Okay, thanks, Scott. The next question is, can the financial insurance amount be provided as a single bond?
Well, like with everything, it depends. If the only financial assurance you're required to provide is, say, Rule 702 for plugging, abandonment, and reclamation of wells, then you might well want to just submit a single bond. If you have a requirement to provide plugging, abandonment, and reclamation for wells and assurance for a remediation project and assurance for a surface owner bond and assurance for a gas facility, I expect you would want to have separate financial assurance instruments so that they could be released independently or managed independently. So if you have a specific question about or if you have a question about your specific application, feel free to call, again, Meredith Moon or Debbie Lutz and just ask them about, how to manage your specifics. But if it's all one type of assurance, like I said, all you have is Rule 702, plugging, abandonment, and reclamation of wells, then I would expect you could submit a single instrument to cover the entire bond amount. So it kind of depends on your circumstances as to whether that makes sense or not. And I guess that's the best I can answer that.
Great, thanks, Scott. We don't have any other questions right now, but we'll give folks just another minute to get those in if you have them. Go ahead and move to wrap up. Here are the next dates through a year from now. Wow, I was really on top of it. So here's these dates that you can mark your calendar for the operator meetings. We may need to change them or add additional ones, but these ones you can probably count on for the next year. And then if you need to be added to the operator email list, please email me at this email address here and make sure you get that last name right. Otherwise, it will bounce back. And no more questions. Oh wait, no,
There was one.
Sorry, there's more than one. For federal surface, what is required as documentation that the well is indeed on federal surface?
So Diana or Mike, if you're on, somebody else is on, might be able to answer this better. I'm not sure what the need to document that it's federal surface, what relationship, what's the context of that question. If you're thinking about anticipating the need to provide financial assurance for the federal wells, which, there is an exemption for federal wells through October of this year, at which time the rules will begin to require us to evaluate whether there is additional financial assurance required beyond that provided to the federal government associated with wells that have fed surface or fed min. If that's the context, then whether or not it's on federal surface, I'm not sure how that would relate to that process. If it's a different context, maybe you could help me, understand the right context.
Great, thanks, Scott. Yes, if there's further clarification there, I'm sorry with my alarm going off. If there's further clarification needed, just put that in the chat. The next one, go ahead and drop that link for the financial assurance flow chart, please, Scott. You could just put that in the chat, and then I'll also make sure to put it in the place where we normally put all of our operator meeting docs. We'll also include a link to that financial assurance flow chart. And the next question is, we have many wells on the surface, but they aren't documented as such. Does this show a meeting for a surface owner bond?
I would work with your permitter or submit a Form 4. Because that, you know, once we do begin to evaluate fed wells, then you know, that will you'll need to update your associated information in the database to make sure that we know you don't have to have a surface owner protection bond, if that's the context of your question. Chris or Sabrina, would you augment that answer, or did I confirm that that's the right thing to do? Maybe Sabrina?
Good morning. Yeah, Scott, I agree with you. I think if there's anything missing in the database that would demonstrate why a surface owner bond is not needed, then definitely work with, I think, the OGLA staff to find out what needs to be submitted on a Form 4 sundry notice to provide like a surface use agreement or some other indication that it's a federal surface.
Great, thanks, Scott and Sabrina. The link to the flow chart says access denied. I've got it here. Let me see if I can open it up to anybody.
Yeah, I submitted the wrong link. Ignore that. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll get the right one in there.
Oh, are you going to do that now?
I'm working on it.
Oh, okay.
Try that.
Thank you. Okay, I was able to access it. Okay, they said that works. I think that is it. Let me just check real quick. Yes, that is it for the questions for today. So with that, our meeting comes to a close. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here, and we will see you at the meeting in May. Have a great day.
Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, everybody.